Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. And I am joined by the dynamic duo. We have David Levin, 4.5, 5 hours north of I-95 in Jacksonville. Hello, David. How are you feeling, David?
Hey, guys. I'm feeling better tonight. Thanks for asking. How's everybody doing tonight?
All right.
A little baseball?
Yeah, well, and we got my other half of our dynamic duo, Stuart Hack attacks. How you doing, Stu?
Holy opening day, Batman.
That's it. Yeah, I'll tell you.
Beautiful thing.
I got to tell you,
Yes.
the Miami Marlins are giving me a reason not to get the MLB package because I don't need it anymore now that I'm kind of dealing with those guys a little bit. So, get everything I need over there. What's that?
You know,
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I've been getting I had been getting the MLB package probably for about 15 years, and I'm not going to do it this year. I actually got an email. I provided Hotwire Communications, and they're offering me the MLB Extra Innings package for $90, which
That's not
I
bad.
think. No, it kind of is, because normally I think I was paying $169 for a full season.
Okay.
So they're asking me to pay more than half of that for a season that's going to be less than 40% played.
Are the playoffs involved? Included?
No, they're not. They never
Oh,
are.
well, then no, that's a bad deal. Sorry. Right, it's a bad deal.
You know, it's just the regular season, because the playoffs are all going to be televised anyway on
Right.
on the networks. So, they're giving me the first week free, which they do to anyone. They do the free previews. But I don't think I'm going to get it. I mean, I have the MLB network, ESPN. I even have Yes if I want to watch a Yankee game. So between those, I'm probably okay for this year.
Right.
And then I'll rethink it next year, see what's happening.
I have
Yeah.
always wanted to do Yes, but I've not done it. Mainly because I want to be, not necessarily see the Yankees, but I want to see who they play. But this year, because they are integrating, interleague play a little bit more, I still wouldn't do it. But at some point, if they go back to the old format, at some point I probably would do it, even if it was just 1 year, just to see what that's like.
Right.
Stuart, how do you get the Yes Network down here?
It's part of my package.
Is it?
I don't know. They're it's one of the networks they have. I wish they would get SNY where the Mets are on,
Right.
but we don't get that down here. I mean, I would get it through the MLB Extra Innings, but I just get the Met games. I don't get any of their other programming.
Right.
But for Yes, I do get the whole program. The only thing, not that it's a huge deal, is for whatever reason, Yes is not HD down here.
Who's your
That's interesting.
who's your cable provider with Yes?
Hotwire Communications.
Well, maybe that's why I don't get it, because I got Comcast. I don't think they have it.
Yeah, I mean, I used to have DirecTV, and I got kind of like a sports package through them. So I had SNY, I had Yes,
Right.
I had all, and I had other cities sports stations also. So it was really cool. But I was paying like $200 a month plus for DirecTV, and it just wasn't. It just ultimately it just wasn't worth it. And then my HOA here, they were using Comcast, and the reason I didn't get it when I moved here is at the time Comcast did not have the baseball package, so I had to. That's why I went to DirecTV. But then they said they're switching to Hotwire. Hotwire had it, so I figured I made the move, and I'm paying way less. I mean, the service isn't as good as DirecTV was, but it's like less than half the price.
Is that? Yeah, I had DirecTV when I first moved here, and they get you a great deal for the NFL package. But then after you get deeper into the contract, it gets really overly expensive.
Okay, but it's like after 3 months they change everything.
Yeah, right. So it didn't hurt that my association.
DirecTV, that their support, the people that you deal with there, they're not that bright. But here's the thing.
Well, I could tell you that up here.
No, but they know they're not that bright, so they really try and make it up to you. So there was 1 year I got the NFL package for free, and I'm more of a baseball fan, but there was a deal that they had, and I knew the deal was really for new subscribers, which I wasn't. So I called up and I kind of acted dumb, and I said, I'm looking I'd like the free NFL, and they said, well, we really can't give it to you. But we can give it to you for like $200, which I guess was discounted. And I was like, well, it's if I'd feel obligated to have to be around on Sundays. With baseball, you can miss a day or two. It's not a big deal.
True.
So the person,
it tells me that you've got Jewish guilt for football. That is fantastic, by the way.
So she said, I guess she felt bad. So she said, hold on a second. And she says, if you agree to keep DirecTV for another 2 years, we'll give it to you for free. I'm like, none.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm liking this guy more and more every week.
There you go. Hey, listen, that's why that's why we do this together, because we have a lot of fun. Yeah, I know in my association, when DirecTV got way overpriced, I had no problem sticking with Comcast, and I'm okay with it. We go out, we want to watch the NFL, we either go to the games, as you well know, Levin, or we go out there to a sports bars that we have. The one that sports bar we usually go to is Duffy's here. Every now and then we'll give Hooters a shot, but Duffy's for the most part is where we usually get our NFL fix. But anyways, I wouldn't spend any money on the MLB extra innings package and abbreviated. And I'm actually glad I got involved with the Marlins. All I need is Fox Sports Florida, so it works for me. So
yeah, I've got the Fox Sports Florida that I follow more than anything, just because since I cover them, they're the people that I talk to on a regular basis, and want to know what's going on. So I stick with the ones that I know the best.
Well, amazingly enough, I finally had a chance to watch a Marlins game on TV, and I'm amazed at the remote broadcast that you have. With them doing it out of Marlins Park, and everybody else has got to stay home. So I'm trying to get used to the dynamics that we're all in the same boat.
That's good.
And covering games, remote broadcast.
It's going to be an interesting season, that's for sure.
Sure will. All right, well, with that said, David, why don't you lead off? Why is this going to be a very interesting show?
So I am moving into the batter's box, guys.
There you go.
So just before we went on the air a few hours ago, Major League Baseball had voted and had expanded the playoffs. It's going to be 16 teams instead of 10, where the first 2 teams in each division are guaranteed a playoff berth. I'm excited about it because it gives more teams, especially in this sprint, a chance at the World Series. I think it's going to be really good, and it's going to have a lot more fan interest. Stuart, what do you think about the expansion, especially in a time like this?
For this year, it's definitely a good thing, and I guess how this year plays out will kind of tell what they do in the future, because in a 60-game schedule, you could probably go 27-33 and be a playoff team, because more than half the teams are going to get in the playoffs. So what they do afterwards, you kind of want to make it special. I mean, I know there was a time years back, the NHL, where every team made the playoffs. It was almost a joke. I think maybe like 16 out of 20. You wouldn't want necessarily baseball to go that route, but this year you have to throw all the rules out, and I think what they're doing is pretty good. Now, did I hear right that there's going to be part of the things that they do is the top seeds are going to be able to pick their opponents?
Well, that part I don't know. Scott, do you?
I didn't get that deep into it. By the time I got the news, I was too busy working on other projects.
I don't know if that was, it may have been on the table. I don't know if that's what they...
I know that was a possibility, and forgive me, I just read it quickly. I was trying to meet deadlines. I'll have to check in on that for you. Okay. But, well, heck, while we're here, through the magic of a computer, let's see what we got here. So anyway, we'll keep on talking about it. I like the idea. As I told Scott when we were talking about it, what was the first thing I said, Scott, when they said they were expanding it to 16?
Well, no, you definitely were in favor, and I agree. I mean, if baseball...
No, I said my Marlins were getting into playoffs.
Yeah, your Marlins are getting into playoffs, which means that if Marlins are getting into playoffs, Don Mattingly is saving his job, although I don't think he'd have gotten fired anyway during an abbreviated season.
If he gets to the playoffs, he's the manager of the year.
Oh, yeah, right. I hear you. Yeah, I agree.
What if Mattingly goes, say they don't do well and they disappoint, and maybe they go 16-44 over the 60 games and they don't make the playoffs? Do you think he could lose his job?
No, I still don't
Actually,
think
yes.
so.
Oh, I do.
Do you?
Go ahead, but go ahead.
I just find it hard to believe that a guy would lose his job during a 60-game season.
But you know what? I think he can, because I think now, because you could hear David getting all excited about the expanded. He thinks the Marlins are going to make the playoffs. Their expectations there now. All of a sudden, their expectations, 162-game schedule, no expectations of them getting in the playoffs.
Right.
60-game schedule, hey, they should have a pretty good chance to at least contend for a playoff spot. Now, if they all of a sudden choke and just lose everything and play uninspired baseball the last, couple of months, the next couple of months, that could fall on the manager for not motivating them, and he could go. Yeah,
uninspired baseball probably gets him the boot, but, judging by what I've been seeing day in and day out, talking to him and getting the vibes here, it would take one really, truly bad situation, but I don't know. It's too early in the game. I don't know. I think Mattingly stays around until 2021, but you're right. They could, but if they, this team is too young and hungry to play uninspired baseball.
I will say this. I agree with everything both of you said. In following the roster since February, and this is, they were starting out. They acquired Villar from Baltimore, which I thought was a really shrewd move, and then they got Aguilar off of waivers, and he could be a 30-home run hitter in a regular season. And then he added additions, and then he made sure that he properly positioned his pitching staff. And then he decides that Levin Diaz, Jesus Sanchez, and Monte Harrison, the three best hitters of any of the prospects all through training camp, he options them. Now I question it. And I even started jotting down an editorial. I was all excited. And then he basically diagonally became my Lucy Van Pelt. Because he's in a win now mode. I know that he's got prospects, and they're going to do great in a year or two or whatever it is. But he really had a chance to show that he could win with prospects this year, and he kind of fumbled it.
Well, one of the additions I like is Corey Dickerson.
Oh, I love that.
That was a good. I saw what he did in the exhibition game yesterday, and the way he worked the count on the pitcher, and I'll tell you what, he's a pretty solid player. He really is.
Yeah, he's a 300 hitter.
Yeah, he really is.
Guys, about the playoffs. Let me read this to you real quick.
Sure.
The league and the Players Union agreed to expand from 10 to 16 teams for the 2020 season only. 8 teams will make it from the American, 8 will make it from the National. Under the new format, the wild card round will include 8 best-of-3 series rather than the 2 do-or-die games. And the higher seed will host the game. Manfred said the top 3 seeds will be division winners ranked by record. Every second-place team will qualify and be seeds 4 through 6. Also based on their record, the 7th and 8th seeds will go to those with the next best records. It doesn't say anything about them picking their opponent. It just says how they're breaking it down.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying. Okay.
No, I want to make sure we got that in there.
That's okay. No, I'm glad you did.
Okay.
Good stuff.
So, hey, it's amazing what a computer can do for you.
Don't worry, I have my iPad Pro in front of me, too.
I'm really excited about this season, guys, and I know we've talked about this. It's 60 games, and it's a sprint, but thank God baseball's back.
Yeah.
For us who have been dying to write about something really, really exciting, this is my Christmas.
So I also have a computer in front of me, and I was just curious. So I looked at 2019, and approximately the first 60 games of the season. So if we were judging the playoff system that they have in place this year, last year, based on the first 60 games that the teams played, so the division winners, the first seed would be the Dodgers in the National League, the second seed would be Milwaukee, and the third seed would be Philadelphia. Then, 4 through 6, we would have the Atlanta Braves would be 4, the Chicago Cubs would be 4, Atlanta would be 5, and Colorado would be 6. The next best records in the National League would be the St. Louis Cardinals and the San Diego Padres. Now, the San Diego Padres were 31-29, so they would be the 8th seed.
And oddly enough, the Washington Nationals started out the season 19-31.
Right, so they were in the day I'm looking. They had played 59 games. They were 26-33.
Right. Okay.
And the Mets were 28-31. So now if we look at the American League, so the top seed would be the Minnesota Twins. Then
they were good last year.
Yeah, they were, weren't they?
Yeah.
The Astros would be the 2nd seed. The Yankees would be the 3rd seed. They were the division leaders after 60 games. Then it gets a little interesting. Tampa Bay, who was 35, and they had a .614 winning percentage, so they would be the 4th seed. Then the Texas Rangers would be the 5th seed. Now, they haven't discussed tiebreakers because the White Sox and Indians were tied for 2nd place in the AL Central.
Right.
So I guess one of them would get in, and they were at 492. The Red Sox
they fought each other all year, didn't they? I mean, that was a battle that went down to like the last round between those two.
And the Red Sox were, it gets tight because the Red Sox were at 508, so they would get in as like maybe the 7th seed, but then you have either Cleveland or Chicago, depending who's 3rd place in the AL Central, and also the Oakland A's were also at 492.
Right.
So it was pretty tight. So in the American League, you know, the last seeds were like maybe a game or two under 500.
Interesting.
I happen to think this is going to be a really good season. I know it's not what we want, but it's going to be really good.
Well, for a lot
as long as they don't have to shut it down.
Right. Yeah. I don't know.
As long as they play this, you know, I'm sorry to put the Debbie Downer in.
No, that's okay.
But we talked about this 2 weeks ago. What would happen if? So yeah, I mean, it's there. I know.
Yeah, but you know, as I see every Zoom call and the protocols that are in place, let me give you some footnotes from Don Mattingly's press conference, and I had asked him yesterday and about the COVID testing. They get the test results back in 24 to 36 hours, and like you said, it helps to have the extra players, and guys are eligible when that they are pending. Now, when you get into that 3rd day past the 48 hours, then he gets a little bit nervous. And then if you have to replace a starter, that could be a tough situation. But, you know, the way you have to work at the ballpark, the locker room, city to city, that's what they're trying to work through as well. So, yeah, and I think you saw evidence of that in Atlanta when the dugout started to get a little crowded, and he said, go back in the tunnels or whatever, because there was some rain there. So to say that there aren't a few kinks that are being worked out, that's another story. Now, I want to make a Jesus Aguilar reference that Don Mattingly loves everything about him. He's locked in for him, and he actually sees him playing a lot of first base and DH as well.
Which means Garrett Cooper's going to play DH when Aguilar's on the bag.
Sounds like that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
You know, and
I like the makeup of this team, and I know we're talking about the Marlins because it's a team that we are familiar with, but
right.
There is so much opportunity for all of these teams that didn't do well last year to make a splash and make it ultra interesting. If you can't tell, I'm being a fan tonight.
It doesn't matter. It's a team that you're very involved with and you know a lot of.
Yeah.
It's not like you're in a position like me who didn't get on the training camp train until just 2 or 3, 4 weeks ago, relying on the releases, and I'm playing catch-up here. But, you know.
But the thing about it, too, is and I love talking about this with you and Stuart, but, you know, Harrison, Sanchez, Diaz, Sixto Sanchez, who's their top prospect, Cabrera, they all played here in Jacksonville. Brian Anderson, their third baseman, who I think is a borderline MVP candidate this year, they all played in Jacksonville. I got to see them, you know, when they were first coming up and how they are developing. To me, that's exciting.
Well,
I just, I'm glad I'm a part of it.
Well, didn't they have a player? I can't remember the guy's name, but you would know that went from Jupiter all the way up to the made the roster. I'm drawing a blank.
Lopez.
Yeah, there you go.
Was it Lopez?
I'm pretty sure you'd have to check that out.
He had a brief stop in Jacksonville for like 4 games. He went from Jupiter to Jacksonville for 4 games, and now he's the 4th pitcher on the rotation.
Probably. I'll take your word for it. I mean, because I'll tell you, when I talked to Skip today, let's face the reality. As we gear up for opening day, he's looking forward to it. Between the spring, the 2.0, the summer camp, and the fact that he can actually celebrate the fact that these games will actually be here and independent race. So there's no question that the urgency is there, and that there's so many things that are going to affect the game, especially in this scenario. Now, let me make an interesting point that I was able to get from Mike Hill. And I think this was really, really interesting when I talked to him. And that's this. When it comes to, let's see, I'm looking at it right now, okay, with Mike Hill. This team is stacked with their pitching, as we well know. But he was asked a couple questions. One, okay, are they delaying the rebuild to win right now? And he, because there was a headline that said it out there, he says that he would disagree with that, and that what they're building is inaccurate in his mind, that they're really trying to win with the additions of Jonathan VR, Aguilar, and Corey Dickerson. So what I ended up doing is I followed up and said, you know what, I know about the strength of your team being with pitching, and how did he feel about the ML draft? And he told me that he was incredibly excited. He didn't think that he would actually be taking 6 pitchers, but that's how it worked out. So it did fortify their system overall, in terms of championships, not over at the local level in Miami, but as well as the development along the way. So, he's really well aware that he has enough pitching depth, and then obviously he has some bearing with the playoffs being expanded, that they're deep, but they're focusing their preparation in this playoff run, and they realize that their hopes are going to depend solely on their pitching. But again, they're carrying 17 pitchers and 13 position players as it stands right now.
Stuart, you'll agree with me with this because we talked about this earlier. What he's saying and what he's doing is exactly what the New York Yankees did with Jeter and Pettit and Roberto and everybody that came up with that heralded group of players.
Right.
It follows the same line as the New York Yankees, don't you think?
Yes, yeah, it does. I mean, it's a different situation out there, but yeah, time will tell. But they definitely have a good core of young players.
Well, I mean, let's face the reality that Jeter was part of that core. And, with Brian Cashman, nobody will say this many years ago when George Steinbrenner had to be sold on the idea, guess what, we can keep these players instead of shipping them. But, yeah, I mean, Derek Jeter definitely has the model in place, and that's what he's trying to build here in Miami.
And the fact that they have 13 pitchers throughout the minor league system that could be considered 1 or 1A pitchers down the line, they're going to be able to trade for some really heavy artillery as far as position players in the future. This team will make a blockbuster deal within 2 years where they're going to get themselves a really good power hitter. And like I talked to you earlier, I still think they'll make a run for JT Realmuto in the offseason because the Phillies aren't giving him a long-term contract.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Marlins are stacking the deck right now, and how many of these players will actually be down playing at the site where the Orange Bowl used to be is anybody's guess, but we'll see. I mean, I like the direction that this franchise is going. I really do. It looks good. We'll see how it translates on the field.
We can pray for a Tampa Bay Miami World Series in the next 5 years.
Yeah, and then Fox will start gagging.
What would you nickname it if it was a Tampa Bay Miami World Series? You have your Subway Series.
A wing and a prayer? I don't know, because it would be great for the state of Florida. I don't know if it's really great for Major League Baseball. What would you call that?
The Sunshine Series?
Yeah, that would work.
Yeah, but we've gotten away with these kind of series out in California, though. Think about it for a minute, right?
Yeah, the Bay Series.
Right, yeah, the Bay Series.
The A's played the Giants. Yeah. Even in Missouri, I forgot what it was called, but the Cardinals played the Royals in '85.
Right, it was down...
the I-70 series, wasn't it?
What was that series?
Wasn't it the I-70 series?
Yeah, it might have been. Might have been, yeah.
Yeah, the I-70 series.
The Giants played the Angels, right?
Right.
That was the year that...
that was 2002. Yeah.
2, right, okay.
And then the Dodgers... But then you've had the Dodgers play the Oakland A's, so you had another all-California series.
Right.
So the Bay Area teams, both Bay Area teams have played Southern California teams.
Right.
On all California series. I don't think it seemed to bother a lot of people.
No, it doesn't bother people. It's exciting.
I mean, you had the Subway Series, too.
I mean, there's kidding, but that could happen.
I mean, think about it. You had the I-70 series, right? Then you have the couple of California series and the Subway series. It doesn't matter. I mean, rivalries are what they are.
Right.
All the more reason why Miami and Tampa need to play each other more each year. You and I have talked about that before. Definitely.
If I were going to call it anything, I'd call it the budget series.
Nice.
What series?
Really nice. The budget.
The budget series.
That's nice.
Sponsored by Dollar General.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God.
Or no, how about Dollar Tree?
No,
the budget series sponsored by Dollar Tree.
Walmart commercial. What are you talking
about?
That's fantastic.
Look at that. Like I said, we have a lot of fun on this broadcast. So here we go, guys. A budget series sponsored by Dollar Tree. A match made in Florida. It'll cost you more on the turnpike system than it will be to go to a game.
Oh, boy.
Wow. Loaded, man.
You're throwing it to me. You're just slinging it.
Not a lot of caffeine either. But I got great material to work with you two guys. That makes it a lot easier.
Okay.
Now, let me ask you, going off a little bit, the players that are like on the taxi squad or in the minor league camp, obviously they have to stay in shape because you never know when they're going to get called up. What are they going to be playing simulated games? Or are they just going to have workouts?
Workouts and simulated games. And I was going to talk about that a little bit at some point. They are still going to do everything they can to keep them in baseball condition or baseball shape. Harrison said that he thought he was ready to play. He understood that he had some things to work on. He said all the right things. He did all the right things in front of the press conference. That he could tell, and I'm sure Scott saw it. He could tell he was gritting his teeth a little bit. He was a little mad. But he's going to go back out and he's going to work on it. His strikeout ratio still needs to be worked on. He needs to show a little bit more consistency at the plate. They're going to get these players ready to go. And then by the way, you're going to see interchanging rosters. If they think that Harrison or is ready to play, or John Birdie isn't giving enough not defensively wherever he is, they'll make a switch. So it's not like we're not going to see these guys.
Oh, well, there's going to be a lot of roster turnover during the course of 60 games. You know what kind of tests you're going to run into and a lot of different circumstances. Yeah, that's why you've got the 60 to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's why. Yeah, Don Mattingly's hinted there'll be a fair amount of roster turnover when it's all said and done. He knows it. But
looking at optimistically, you see some of the injury reports now, and I've never been so happy to see players with oblique injuries. Right. Injuries that players are supposed to get, as opposed to, they don't say what it is, but it's like the big elephant in the room. Like everyone's assuming what it is.
Hey, listen.
So when you see players put on the IL for 10 days and they don't give you a reason, I'll give you 2 yeses and the first one's wrong.
Yeah, right. Well,
and that's why players who we expected to be on rosters aren't going to do it now because they're already too far behind. So it's another year waiting. And by the way, Stuart, and this is why I love Scott. He says to me, "What do you think about the season? Are we going to get a full 60 in?" And then I say, "Yes, we are. And the reason why we are is because Mike Trout is playing baseball." And as soon as Trump announced that he was going to play baseball, you knew that the league office was like, okay, we're getting 60 games in no matter what.
Yeah.
We have Superman.
We got Superman. Now we're getting the playoffs.
A lot of credit. You look at all the sports, and baseball had the labor problems in the beginning, trying to come to an agreement. But which is the first sport to resume?
Right.
Yeah, that's true. They are. And then, let me.
I'll say this. I'll give. I love the fact that you're right. We're going back and we're coming full circle. I'll give the NBA and the NHL credit because they're the ones who stuck to the plan the first time and they've never budged. I don't know still if it works, but I'll give them credit for sticking their neck out and saying, "Okay, we're going to try this."
Right. Let me point one interesting thing out to you guys, and then I want to talk about the Mookie Betts contract as well before we get off the air. But the Detroit Tigers make out like bandits with Jordan Zimmerman going on the 45-day AL, and much less the fact that COVID-19, because they would have had him to pay him his entire salary for a guy that's been busted up where that was a bad free agency. So you talk about some interesting fate. Jordan Zimmerman's going on the 45 injured list, and maybe if they're lucky, if they even get in the playoffs, he might be available if you want him. But COVID-19 helped save the Tigers a lot of money off of Jordan Zimmerman's prorated numbers, considering that contract that he signed wasn't one of their better acts in free agency. So.
No, that's a dodge a bullet type thing.
Yeah, well, it is, exactly. It is a dodge a bullet.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let me ask you guys something, because I don't do this. At least I haven't done it in a while. And it's off topic, Scott, so please forgive me. But
that's okay.
Do y'all do fantasy baseball?
No.
I used to.
Okay. I'm wondering, because it's such a money-making venture, like other topics that we're supposed to talk about. How does this affect fantasy sports? Because that's a big thing about baseball is, it's strategic, it's 160 games, it's playoffs, it's everything. I'm wondering what kind of hit that's taking based on what isn't being done this year.
I think, depending on the league, they will do what they can. I mean, you have guys that can go on the disabled list. It's going to happen all of a sudden anyway, whether it's COVID, oblique injury, arm injury, anything. So what they may do, similar to Major League Baseball, they may expand like some of the rosters that they're allowed to keep to give them a little bit more of a cushion. I don't know. I'll have to talk. I have some friends that are still doing it. I'll have to talk to them and see if they're resuming their league.
It's got to be at least 5 years since I've done that, so I was just curious. I know that I'm a little older, so I kind of moved away from it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm older than you. I don't think I've done it like 10, 12 years.
Well, okay, but fantasy football is all I can handle. It's a lot easier for me to handle, so I only have to do it once a week. But I was curious about that. But that's a big part of everything that goes on with baseball these days.
Well, wasn't there another baseball thing many years ago that they had before fantasy baseball? I'm trying to remember what it was, but I know that when I was covering the Tampa Tarpons up in Tampa, at that time they were affiliated with the Reds, that the PA announcer was involved in another baseball league, and him and his wife were both involved. I can't remember what it was.
Okay.
Well, you have the board games like Stratomatic and APPA.
Right.
Well, I used to like All-Star Baseball years ago. Oh, that was a great one.
Yeah.
All-Star Baseball.
That were like the precursors, really, for fantasy baseball. So you could replay seasons, based on their stats. And
Right. Oh, we're walking down memory lane, guys, here. I'm feeling...
Oh, it doesn't matter, David. Who cares?
Amazing.
It doesn't matter. Great memories of times when I was a lot skinnier and had brown hair instead of the old gray instead of any version.
Yeah.
Well, you know what, David, since we segued and I brought up the Detroit Tigers, why don't we go ahead and segue into what we're going to, one of our major topics. I know that you indicated in your notes that there's a poisonous pill for the sport, and do you see this becoming a major concern past the season? Go ahead, take it away, Mr. Levin.
Oh, boy. Okay, so now, as I'm segueing into what we were originally going to talk about, it looks like, and we had talked about this 2 weeks ago, the Detroit Tigers are getting in bed with sports betting and prop bets with one of the major betting. I have to pull it back up again. I'm sorry. Here we go. That the Detroit Tigers are getting in bed with, as the first Major League Baseball team partner with a sports book. PointsBet has joined forces with the Detroit Tigers and will be amongst the online gaming companies to enter the Michigan market with betting apps and everything. The problem that may present itself is that it's available during baseball games. And as you and I and Stuart know, that could cause quite a bit of trouble with fans and potential individuals involved with Major League Baseball betting on games. Scott and I talked a lot about it, today, about how it becomes a poisonous pill because it just conjures up this image of baseball being dirty now, at least in my mind. Stuart, what do you think?
Yeah, I had also mentioned, too, a couple of weeks ago, you have the innocence that we remember as kids with baseball, going to the games, what they do for kids. And now it almost starts to remind me of like an OTB or a racetrack, and you hope it doesn't take over the game because, you'll have, it would be a shame for young kids now not to get the same experience that we had. I realize they can't have the same exact experience because obviously with social media and stuff, but when you have individuals that may not be as upstanding, around what really should be a game that, you want to have young fans there because that's the future of the game. The fans the kids that come to the games now, you want them to bring their kids and so forth. And I don't know. Hopefully there's some sort of plan in play and maybe it doesn't get out of hand. And, I understand teams are thinking of different ways where they can bring in revenue because obviously this year everyone's taken a major hit. It's going to happen, and I think at some point every team will have some form of where you could go to the game and make bets. I'm not thrilled about it, but I guess, I think it's an inevitable thing, almost like the universal DH.
Yeah, no debating that. I mean, I think we talked about what PointsBet, right? PointsBet, right? Okay.
Right.
Yeah, and amazingly enough is that we all know that Mike Ilitch had a boatload of money. Chris Ilitch has always been the businessman that's been running his empire. So, to his credit, he found a opportunity for revenue and he's going with it. So I don't have a problem with it. What we talked about before was, the Detroit Tigers play in an area where you have 3 major casinos. And don't forget, you also have a casino across the border or two out in Windsor. So there's gambling in that area. There's a precedent for this.
Now, do you see something, if this takes off, where, say, all the teams are doing it, and say the Tigers are on the road, but they open up the stadium anyway for bets?
That was something I was going to bring up. Can I jump in, Scott?
Sure,
okay.
Absolutely, David.
Okay, first of all, I want to let you know, too, that part of this deal is signage. The Detroit Tigers are getting a lot of money here at Comerica Park to have, radio spots, and there's going to be signage for the, play, bet here or whatever, how they want to promote it. So, it's definitely a money grab, and Stuart's right. And by the way, the first thing I said to Scott this afternoon, too, was, God, I can see people being at a racetrack and have to go place a bet on a baseball game. And, down in Hialeah or, up here in Jacksonville at the Best Bet. This is taking on a whole different, a different situation for me, and it does ruin the innocence. When we were kids and we went to baseball games with Dad, we'd get popcorn and peanuts and we'd sit at the game and we'd watch the game. Can you imagine Dad having to get up in the middle of the 4th inning because he's got to go place a prop bet on whether there's going to be a single or not? It tarnishes everything. And I know there's going to be apps too, by the way. This is all set up not so much so that they definitely have to go to a concourse to place a bet. There's going to be betting apps and stuff like that. But it how about this? It bothers the hell out of me. Because I know I want to be able to take my kids to the game, and my daughter's 13 and she loves baseball, and if I can take her to the game, great, but I don't want to have to worry about the guy next to me having to get up to go place a bet. because he's got to go make money off the game. There are some other things that are tied into it. I was doing some reading. The Denver Broncos last year became the first team to get involved with this because they got in bed with FanDuel. And we all know FanDuel is huge, and I've done bets on FanDuel before for other sports, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. But Denver Broncos, as opposed to the Detroit Tigers, they're a blue blood just like the Tigers are in baseball, but they don't need money. They sell out every game. They have people waiting for season tickets. They sell memorabilia, and they're one of the more popular teams in the NFL. So this kind of changes everything. The NBA has done this before. I think the NHL has done some of this too to make revenue money because the NHL is the fourth, the bottom of the top four.
Right.
This just changes the complexity of everything that becomes sacred about this game. And then I'll throw it out there. If a player gets busted for doing this, and somebody finds out that, on his app, he's betting against his team, or he's betting that he's going to get 3 singles, or he's, X, Y, and Z, what's the penalty? And if there is no penalty, could we please put Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame?
I was waiting for that.
Stuart Jackson, come on in.
Yeah, I was waiting.
I would think a player wouldn't be stupid to, use their own app, but you run into the problem where they have friends, right, and they place bets through the friends, and then you have to start making the connection where, John Smith is friendly with this player, and, he seems to be making a lot of bets related to this game and this player, and that's when
that is the way it is. We're going to find out about it no matter what.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when you talk about betting, for crying out loud, full well Rose's name will be the first one to come up and Shoeless Joe second. But do you guys remember the time, though?
Do you think Rose would be the first one to get the app?
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past them. Hey, I'll tell you what, Stuart. What about Denny McLain?
Oh, my God.
What about Denny McLain?
Right, because that's the best one of the night.
What about Denny McLain? He didn't mind.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, he's not afraid to. Yeah, he did. He's served a little time in the past for stuff he probably wasn't supposed to do, but he's rebounded well in Michigan, though, I'll tell you. He has his own podcast up there, and he's really straightened up, and more power to Danny.
Right.
So
you see, Stuart, Scott was right. There's 3 casinos that are involved in this, and one of them, I believe, is owned by
Marion Elledge. Yeah, Motor City Casino.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Who's owned by the owners of the Tigers. So, of course, it's a perfect fit. Right. But you're going to see maybe the Marlins because there's lots of pari-mutuel betting downstate. There's casinos that, offshore that do this. Up here, they do like the Sun Cruise where you can go and bet and do simulcast and stuff like that. It becomes a lightning rod. So what also happens when the Toronto Blue Jays want to move, or the Tampa Bay Rays want to move? Las Vegas wants a baseball team. Las Vegas has a football team. We've already had problems where we questioned whether putting a professional sports team in Las Vegas was a good idea. This just it's like a mushroom head. It's kind of growing. Yeah. Or at least maybe I'm making too much out of it.
Well, you have to talk about it. I mean, you do.
And unfortunately, this is the year where they can implement it.
Right.
If this didn't happen, you might not be hearing it, but now, again, teams are looking for creative ways for revenue.
Oh, yeah.
And this is the time, and I think once they do, there's really no turning back.
If one of the New York teams did it, or maybe the Dodgers, or or the Red Sox, then I think you really have a problem, because those are the major markets. And Detroit's a major market too, I know, but I'm talking about the teams that are constantly in the playoff run. You get a team that is a big market team, especially like. By the way, if the Houston Astros ever do it, it would be bedlam.
I can imagine. Yeah, that's true.
I just thought of that.
Yeah, are you going to incorporate a bet here with the Astros about what player is going to get plunked?
Well, okay, let's.
Well, I'll tell you what. You brought up the Astros, Levin. Now you got to own it.
I know.
I mean, let's face it, you can bet on anything, right?
Tomorrow night, because I want to see how many hit pitches there are.
I think there are only 2 games tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Well,
so
pit by pitches, I'm dying to see.
yeah, well, you never know. In the wonderful world of we can bet on anything on the planet, why not have the Houston Astros be the guinea pigs of what's the over under how many players are going to get popped?
It's a given.
What's
It's a given.
Oh yeah, I know, and they make out easy with this 60-game season because God only knows how bad it would have been with 162 of them. Although Major League Baseball players have a long memory and they'll get whacked in 2021. It doesn't matter.
You never know. I think they literally dodged. I won't say a bullet, but a ball because they're not they're not the story this year. They would have been. They were in March, but they're not anymore. And
Drayton is like thanking all the baseball guys right now.
He's
thanking Rob Manfred right now.
Yeah, right.
He really is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, 60 games.
Because I think by 2021, if things go back to normal, I still think they're not going to get it as bad as they would have. If 2020 was a normal year.
It's almost.
Well,
you may have the occasional guy, who's a little bitter. He feels he was gypped, or like the Aaron Judge, maybe should have been the MVP that year.
Yeah, but Stuart, though, I think they could get it bad depending on who's on the roster. You can't nail a guy who wasn't on the roster, but the ones that are the culprits in this whole scandal, they haven't gotten whacked yet, and who knows how many times they will. They certainly get away with it because they didn't have any booze.
They could be spread on different teams.
That's true too.
Get the message. So it wouldn't necessarily all be the Astros, but some of these guys are like the guy he's now in the Mets. He's hurt now. Jake Moranchek or something.
That's a good point, Stu. Just because you're not on the Astros,
we get mad at something tears at our heartstrings, and we get ticked off about it, and we stew about it for a month. And then it goes away. And unfortunately for the Astros, this is something that I think can go away because next year there's the possibility of a lockout or a player strike, or they're complaining about their money. Those things will take precedence over whether or not the Astros are still the villains.
I still think they're going to get whacked. But like Stuart, I do. I mean, hey, you brought it up, and now Stuart's got me sold on the fact that they may not all get whacked on the Astros, but some of these guys that pulled those Stein ceiling things on other teams are going to get drilled. So any manager that you better have you'll have a Maalox moment every time this guy's going to hope that
if the Mets would have kept Carlos Beltran as manager, then some of the Met players would have taken hits probably.
That's true.
And they would have taken it for the team. Yeah, you're right. I didn't think about that.
This thing's not going away that quick.
If Joey Cora was still part of the Red Sox, it would have been really bad too.
Right.
Alex,
same
Alex
thing.
or Joey?
I think it's Alex.
Joey, I'm sorry. Okay, Alex. It would have been the same thing.
This talk I've heard, like in Boston, he may come back there.
No.
I've heard because I think Ron Renicky is managing the Red Sox this year.
Right.
And it's kind of like they're talking about it as if it's a 1-year interim thing.
Right.
Management really likes Cora. And I think it's there. And he's gone this year, but he can come back in 2021.
Oh, boy.
Beltran, I don't think will ever manage because he didn't have the resume because Cora did win a world championship with the Red Sox. So he was loved in Boston. The fans loved him before all this happened.
I was kind of on the fence about, and because Scott and I had talked, this is one of the first shows that Scott and I did about baseball. I was on the fence about Beltran getting the job to begin with.
Oh yeah.
I wasn't real. It didn't. There was no jazz there for me. He's a player and he's well liked, and and he's a guy who gave his 17 years to Major League Baseball or whatever it is. So they're honoring him by making him a manager.
Well, I think what the Mets had to do, a lot of times when teams change managers, the replacement's got to have a different background than the person who left. Mm-hmm. So in the Mets case, they wanted somebody who was a former player who also had ties to the Mets.
Right.
And Beltran checked a lot of those boxes. To even, Luis Rojas, hopefully he ends up being an excellent manager, and he also interviewed when Beltran got it, but he didn't have the pizzazz right off, that Beltran had the name. And I think...
And he had the playoff resume, and we all remember that. And, those are things that are bright in our minds, and that's what helps. I mean,
and even look like, Mickey Callaway replaced Terry Collins, and they were different. Yeah. Because you're not going to bring the same type of guy in. It's got to be something different. So you'll see... I mean, like, if Rojas is gone in a couple of years, the Mets might go for an older guy with more experience. They wouldn't necessarily pick a guy that's his first job.
So
it's not like the Yankees in the 70s and 80s where George would keep on regurgitating the same manager over and over and over again. I get it.
Well, George invented the taxi squad with managers.
Oh my God!
So he was the originator. So he had his Billy Martins, his Bob Lemon, Gene Michael, Yogi Berra. He had all those guys, and he would just pick one when he was ready to change.
That's true. Well, so let me ask you guys.
A kid growing up, because I am a few years younger than you, I didn't understand that. It's like, why does this guy keep on coming back and back? Billy Barton, I thought was great, but I didn't understand why they kept on, bringing him out, and it just baffled the hell out of me. Now I understand it.
Well, history has its place. Let me ask you. You guys bring up some interesting points, so I want to really go into a little bit deeper. You talk about Cora possibly coming back. I mean, I know you're speculating at the moment because the Red Sox like him, but let's not lose sight of the fact that Ron Renneke has a pretty decent year, despite the fact that they traded away Mookie Betts. Plus he also had a solid career with the Milwaukee Brewers. I think Ron Renneke is a very interesting. He's a very stabilizing manager. I like Ron Renneke in Boston. I really do. At this time, if he can get some mileage out of the roster that he has.
It may also depend on what he wants to do, what Ron Renneke wants for his future. The Red Sox may have sat down with him and said, look, we want you to do it this year, but we have no promises whatsoever. They may have told him we may bring back Cora. We don't know. And he may be okay with that at this point in his life. We don't know his family situation, his health. Mm-hmm. There could be a lot of factors that play in where he'd be willing, and maybe that's why they gave him the job, because they knew he'd be okay with just doing it for a year.
Well, that's true. There's no question. So, with that said, do you think A.J. Hinch ever gets another managerial job?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
No.
Boy, those are definitive no's.
And he didn't necessarily do anything illegal, but he kind of knew about. He was basically the Richard Nixon of Major League Baseball.
Oh God, that's loaded.
He knew about it, but he didn't do anything, and maybe he tried to cover it up a little bit.
Oh my God!
And for that, he's not good. I don't even think he'd get a scouting job.
Wow!
But he wasn't the brains behind it.
No, he wasn't. And if you watch the interview, he wasn't the brains behind it. I will say this: that if Ron Renneke does a really good job in Boston, and it is a one-year deal, and for some reason the Marlins decide to kick Don Mattingly up into the front office, I'll take Ron Renneke in a heartbeat. I really will. I think he's a great baseball mind.
I do too.
I think he's good. I think he's good for the game.
I do too.
Yeah, I mean, if they do, and he wants it, he'll get another job.
Yeah. And by the way, I don't think that would happen. I honestly think that if they get rid of Mattingly and they move him up to management, Jorge Posada is going to be the next manager.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, well, because he's a Jeter guy. That's why. I agree.
Right. Well, yeah.
But do you think he's the right? But do you think he's the right fit for a young team because you have a first time?
No, I don't. But I said it should be him.
No. Yeah, but I think that David's onto something. Jorge Posada and Jeter obviously were part of that championship run, but you don't want him to. You got to give Don an opportunity to try to. He's made the sacrifices in this rebuild. You got to give him a chance to try to see it through.
Oh, definitely. The only problem I have with it, and you guys know that I'm a big Don Mattingly guy, and I love him. I loved him when he was in LA with the Dodgers. He had two really good teams the first 2 years. And I know the first year they almost made the playoffs, and essentially, Jose Fernandez's passing cost them that. The second year they slipped a little bit, but they were a bunch of individuals, and Stanton was chasing a home run record, but they were a bunch of individuals that didn't work well together. There was no way that Mattingly cohesively made that team work, especially with his pitching staff. The last 2 years, it's a rebuild. So there's Mattingly before and Mattingly after. So this is the crossroads season, regardless of the 60 games. That's why I say I think he can lose his job.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's talk about the Mookie Betts contract.
I'm going to let you do that because I'm still astounded by it.
Well, here's the interesting part about that contract. Everybody talked about the prorated salaries for 2020.
Mm-hmm.
From what I heard in that contract, he gets all of his 2020 salary in the because in the deal is what he does. And I know there'll be some deferred money down the road. So, hello, Bobby Bonilla. It looks like Mookie Betts may have the next Bobby Bonilla contract.
Well, he's 27, so the deal takes him to, I guess he's 39.
Right.
Right, and you have already called to ask to be his tax consultant, right?
You're right.
Well, we're in talks, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure. Okay, cool.
Just make sure that
he's got California has a high tax rate, so he's going to.
Yeah, he's going to eat a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about that jock tax, Stuart? I'm going to bring it up every time we talk about taxes. I didn't know about a jock tax until Stuart Hack made me aware of the whole thing.
And he's going, what? Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So, but
what astounds me most about this, though, when this contract is done, I'll be like 69 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'll
you
be.
Feel really good. Thank you. I appreciate.
I'll be
that.
69, 72, 69 or 70 when it is done. But the question is I'm just wondering about that contract. How much of it, the deferred money, turns into Bobby Bonilla territory?
I don't. You know what? And Stuart will be the one to talk about that. But I don't think contracts based on the Bobby Bonilla thing. And I know that we kid around about it, but it is a brilliant contract. Just based on the fact that he's still collecting it.
Yeah.
Owners and agents and whoever else are involved in it, I'm pretty sure they do everything they can to try and stay away from it. Especially since this year is definitely a guarantee that he's going to get his money. Stuart would be able to talk more about that. Don't you think that they stay away from that?
Yeah, I mean, these things start setting precedents that they may not want to get into. I think with Mookie Betts, I think for him, I think it could be a good contract. I think, he's a solid player. He does not, he plays, which is important. You look at the last, and I have his career in front of me, the last 5 seasons, he's played in 145, 158, 153, 136, 150 games. So the guy plays.
He's durable.
He's durable. Yeah. And that's a plus. Like, when Stanton signed that contract years ago with Miami, the Marlins actually, by dumping him to the Yankees, got out of it because that contract was more bottom heavy. They didn't pay him. When he was with the Marlins, he wasn't getting paid as much. Most of the money was coming in the later years, so the Yankees right now are on the hook for that. With Betts, I think it's more of a sound contract, and for his purposes, I don't know how familiar he was with Los Angeles before the area, but obviously there's marketing opportunities for him, which will make up for the higher taxes. So I think it's a better contract than a Stanton, for both sides. There'll be some pressure. Dave Roberts is someone that's definitely going to feel some pressure. I don't think he'll get fired this year. But if the Dodgers underperform...
Next year he's on the seat.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Yeah, if they underperform next year, I think, he could be gone. It'll be interesting to watch. But I like the Betts... the long-term signing for Betts I like way better than Stanton, which I knew at the time was really just a horrible deal.
Yeah, we choked on that one when we saw it. Let me ask you this. I think Betts is a really good player. I don't necessarily think he's a top 10 player, And when I look at contracts like that, the first thing I think of is the Trout contract. So economically, which one is the better deal?
Him or Trout, you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, he's not Mike Trout. Let's put it like that.
No. Although, Mike, he's more durable, I think, than Mike Trout.
Okay.
It's hard. It's hard to predict where their careers will go from here. I mean, Mike Trout is headed towards Hall of Fame right now, based on what he's done so far.
Still right now, yes. Yeah.
Mookie Betts, if he maybe another 6-7 years the way he has, puts him in the discussion. He plays in some more postseasons. He's in the discussion for the Hall of Fame. Trout, even though he's been on. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Trout, he's played on some crummy teams, but he's put up, when he's been in the lineup, he's put on great numbers.
Mike Trout is Mickey Mantle of our generation. Mookie Betts could be Roger Maris if he plays consistently the way he has been playing. And that's why I don't necessarily think he makes a Hall of Fame.
I think he's better than Roger Maris. I think he'd be better.
In the context of who the two players are, I guess is what I'm saying.
Okay.
You're going to draw comparisons now, not necessarily based on play. You're going to draw comparisons based on contracts. These guys are going to be compared to how much money they made, not what they're doing in the field. Stanton's not worth the contract. I'm hoping he has a better season. I know last year was terrible and he was injured and whatnot, but he's not worth all the money he's being paid. Mike Trout might be worth all the money he's being paid. Mookie Betts has a chance to be worth the money he's being paid. That's the way they're going to judge these players now.
Right.
Well, bear in mind that Mike Trout plays in Anaheim with the Angels, and you got to remember that in that LA market, you need one superstar to compete for the entertainment dollar versus another one. You got Betts over with LA, and then you had Trout over in Anaheim. So,
right.
You talk about one city battling for the better athletes. That's a classic rivalry in your little freeway series there. If you think about it, right?
Yeah. If they met in the world, that would be, even this year, that would be a great way. Major League Baseball would love that if those two faced off in the World Series.
Yeah, I mean, and think about when they meet the freeway series in the future for the regular season, as if those games didn't have a lot of people. Why don't you stick Mookie Betts and a Mike Trout in the lineup, and all of a sudden you got a traffic jam all the way to your stadium with an S.
You know that Major League Baseball is really hoping now that Mookie Betts and Aaron Judge are in the World Series.
Oh yeah,
1 versus 1, or Mike Trout and Aaron Judge, no, they can't be. Sorry, never mind. The Mookie Betts and I'm tired, guys, and Aaron Judge in the World Series because they're heavy hitters and they're the kings of their market.
I just had a thought based on what we were talking about earlier. Yeah, I guess you could say the Dodgers are placing their bets on Mookie.
Oh, that was good, Stu. That was good. I was waiting for that timely one-liner. That's one I didn't come up with, but that one's all on you, Stuart Hack. Good one. Like that.
He's had the 2 best ones tonight.
That's all right.
Even a blind squirrel finds an acorn from time to time.
Yeah, but think about it. The longer we keep doing this show, everybody's going to get their share of one-liners. Come on. We all have pick our moments when to slide one down the middle of the plate.
So next week I get mine.
Yeah.
I'm sure you will. There's no doubt about that. No doubt. No, I mean, hey, listen.
We've knocked it out of the park tonight, guys.
Yeah, I think we have.
Yeah, pretty well.
Yeah,
let's just wait for our 12-year contract to come.
Yeah, well.
I'm going to need a tax attorney.
Well, we call it 108 Stitches Baseball Talk, but we'll just say 108 Stitches Baseball Talk around the horn because that's exactly what this broadcast is listed as. I mean, we talk about gambling, we talk about large contracts.
My taxes for me, so you're on deck. I've always said that the guys who are covering baseball should get paid as much as the baseball players. I don't see that happening, but if it ever does, I will call you.
Okay. You know where to find me.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, think about it, guys, what we've talked about tonight. We talked about baseball gambling. We talk about Mookie Betts contracts, the MLB's expanded playoffs. And I don't know, for some reason, for all those people that may have been skeptical about whether this season could see it all the way through, I have a feeling as long as the testing protocols are what they are and that these guys are taking a regular with the extra players, I believe that we can see this thing through. And you guys make a great point earlier that Major League Baseball is the first major sport out of the gate, despite all the bickering for a period of time. They're the ones starting out first. We know the NBA is inevitable, and I know hockey will finish. I really do know hockey will finish.
And Scott and I are praying that the NFL finishes.
Well, I'm wondering if the NFL is going to start with these tests piling up the way they are, let alone finish. I mean, I'm just based on what I hear. Well, it is, and but when you think about the whole thing, you have a lot more players on an NFL roster than you do with all these other sports.
Right.
You do.
Yeah, and we'll have to see how that plays out.
I mean, we don't know. We know college sports, I think, is in serious jeopardy.
Well, you may see in the NFL because they may need expanded rosters. You may see guys who were playing in the XFL who thought their careers were over, maybe getting another shot.
Oh, yeah. That's a great point.
Well, there's no shortage of players out there.
No, and were there players that were complaining, Scott or Stuart, help me out, there are players who they are voicing their opinion that they want better protocols and whatnot, but are there actual people saying, I don't know if I'm going to play yet as far as NFL players go?
I haven't heard.
I don't know if there's an opt-out.
That's not to say.
I don't know how that's going to
It may even still be too early to, look into that. Right now, I guess camps are supposed to start like next week, right?
Next 2 weeks, the first week in August.
Right.
So I'm getting information about it now. How they're starting to get things together. I don't have any information or anything like that, but the rookies reported yesterday and they all got tested. The veterans are going to report; they're all going to get tested. The players that have been injured and going through injury protocol and whatnot, they're going to get tested. So I mean that's what they're doing right now. But other than that, it's kind of it's a dead period.
Well, not only that, you can't lose sight of the fact that there won't be any preseason football either.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, there won't be any preseason football. So how they make major roster decisions without preseason is anybody's guess. I don't know.
I'm more worried about the fact I'm not seeing you until September, Scott.
I know. Hey, I am too. I'm looking forward to coming up there a lot.
You just want to see the Detroit game because, by the way, Stuart, if you want to see something fantastic, when the Jaguars play the Lions here in Jacksonville, and hopefully we will be in the press box. And by the way, Scott, we will be 6 feet apart. We will not be joined at the hip. Be 6 feet apart. I guarantee there'll be a tear in his eye.
Why is that?
Because the Lions are playing the Jaguars and he gets to see it live.
Well, I've seen the Lions play the Jaguars a few times live before.
Yeah, but for the first time in 8 years.
Well, no, I actually saw them play the Dolphins a few years ago when I made it here.
Okay.
And in Tampa. So. But no, I think it'll be different, though, with the series now because in retrospect, I'm covering the Jaguars and not the Lions, so I won't be going into the Lions locker room. I'll be going to listen to Doug Marrone instead, so that would be where it's a little different.
I have friends in other places. You can still go in the Lions locker room.
I don't care. No, I'm fine. I have to deal with this stuff now that being in the loop for the Detroit Tigers for all the time, I get used to the people I work with here in Miami with the Marlins, and I'm okay with that. Not that you don't have a wonder who's going to do well what, but you also realize who you're working with, and, it changes your approach on, there's nothing, and we both know this as well, David, there's nothing worse than going into an NFL locker room with a losing team other than you feel that locker room turns into a morgue.
Oh, yes. Oh, my. Yes.
And I used to get a steady diet of that at the Pontiac Silverdome where the Lions did a lot of winning and they did a lot of losing.
I'll tell you a little secret, and I know we're on the air, and nobody else is listening. But when the Jaguars
we hope somebody's listening.
Last year, I was excited. And the reason why I was excited is because I got to go in the Saints locker room. Because I was determined before he retired, I was going to see Drew Brees in person. So, and then he didn't play, and then I got there, and then it didn't happen, and I was really bummed about it. But there's something about, even if it's a losing team, Scott, there's a joy in doing what you do, right?
Oh, yeah. No doubt about it.
There you go.
Well, we get to go, when you put things in perspective, we get to do things that anybody in their right mind would love to trade places with us for. They would.
I don't know. I want to do what Stuart does.
Yeah, I was going to say, someone wants to trade with me?
You know what? Sure. I think what you do is pretty interesting.
It can be. Yeah, it's got its moments.
Yeah, well, you know. Yeah. But I think us three of us are really blessed that we get to sit and talk about it because it's something that we love so much.
Yeah.
Which is really a good thing.
Oh, yeah.
Above everything else. You know, and I may shed a tear tomorrow night when the Marlins do start playing baseball. Who knows? I won't admit to that, but, you know, it might.
Well, you know, like I said, the Marlins have saved me money from buying the MLB extra innings package. I'm fine with that.
You know, yeah.
And then I can start asking baseball questions over at these Zoom calls instead of playing catch-up.
Oh, by the way, too, I know because I have Sprint, there is an app where I can get baseball that I'm going to download. And I don't know if it's a full season or it's just a partial package or whatnot, but I'm going to take advantage of that and see how it goes. And then if it doesn't turn out to be the way I want to, then I'll go to another, you know, source to get my baseball.
The only chance I have a chance to see the Detroit Tigers at all is if they end up becoming one of those surprise teams and they're interesting. And we talk about the Marlins being loaded with prospects. Over the last couple of years, the Tigers are accumulating assets through the draft, too.
Oh, yeah. It's the same process.
Yeah, they've
done very well.
They had to get rid of a lot of...
The Mets have done well, too. I do want to leave Stewart out. The Mets have done their fair share.
Yeah.
The Tigers had a lot of older guys with bad...
really good.
The Tigers had a lot of older guys with a lot of bad contracts, and they're trying to shake from underneath that. Just as the Marlins, nobody said rebuilding was easy, but you hope and pray that you have your core for a lot of years. And before the Tigers went into this rebuild, Jim Leland had them on the right track, and they were winning an awful lot. There was a team that, you know, they were threatening the Mets record, but they didn't get it, thankfully. But, you know.
Yeah, that record was the Mets had to be safe for a while.
Yeah, well, nobody wishes a record like that on anybody, but I can tell you what, we have a really good record for making sure that all of our listeners out there have an opportunity to get it all. And you know what? I enjoy talking baseball with you guys. I really do. It's a lot of fun. I'm glad we get to do this once a week.
Yeah, it is.
It was a good night, guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
it was good.
Yeah, so for all you folks wondering about PointsBet, you know, will Pete Rose get in the Hall of Fame? Will Shoeless Joe Jackson get in the Hall of Fame? Don't hold your breath. It won't happen.
Rose will get in posthumously.
Yeah, you know, there is one thing before we close out the broadcast that I want to mention. Remember a long time ago when Mickey Mantle and Willie Mays were banned from baseball because they were greeters at a casino?
Yeah, well, I remember that. Yeah. Something like that.
Bowie Kuhn kind of nixed the job for him.
Yeah, they did.
Bowie is Bowie.
But meanwhile, Peter Ueberroth took the high road and brought him back.
Right.
You know, I got to ask you this now that it's come to mind, Stuart. I don't know how you're following. What are your thoughts about the job that Peter Ueberroth did as commissioner of Major League Baseball?
Trying to remember. It's been a while.
He did a great job.
Well, he averted a player's strike. I know that.
He didn't really, to me, obviously, he didn't stick out either way. You know, I remember more the Bowie Kuhn era, the things that he did. You know, more stuff went on. You know, Giamatti and then Fay Vincent. You know, I kind of remember more. Peter Ueberroth, he was known more for being on the Olympic Committee.
Right, I remember that.
That's how he got the Major League.
Did he do more for that? Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Sorry. I think, didn't he do more for the Olympics than baseball?
I think he did.
Well,
I think he got the baseball job because of the Olympics.
Well, he did, but here's the thing about him. I do remember when there was a potential labor issue over there that he begged the owners and the players, I don't strike. It's bad for the fans, and they averted that situation is what they did.
Right.
Now, I do remember that much, and then he didn't want any part of it because he probably figured it was hard dealing with the owners anyhow. Now, with all due respect to Peter Ueberroth, okay, he's one of the few guys that actually, anytime you host an Olympics, you lose money. The LA Olympics made money with Peter Ueberroth running the show.
They made tons of money with
Ueberroth.
Because it was done right.
Yeah.
And nobody's followed that model since, by the way.
And that's why
was that the Olympics? Did Russia boycott that? And did not come?
Well, yeah, they boycotted the 84 Olympics.
Yeah.
I was actually at the 84 Olympics and saw my only time at Dodger Stadium was when the U.S. was playing Korea. So then when you wonder why...
I don't think Russia boycotted. I think they were banned.
No, they boycotted the 84 Olympics.
Well, I know the U.S. didn't go to Moscow.
Right, no. What happened, David...
Right. I'm sorry, you're right. He's right.
No, the Russians boycotted 84 with the Olympics, and the U.S. boycotted 80.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Back and forth. Sorry.
No, it's no big deal.
I was young back then. I was 13. Okay,
wow.
I got to remember these things.
Well, I feel a responsibility to remember them.
Well, I appreciate it. So.
It's okay. So now we're covering about baseball around the horn and around the globe with this. All right, well, with that said, okay, Stuart, why don't you go ahead and lead off and let everybody know how they can get a hold of you.
I'm sorry, I cut out a second. What was that?
All right, why don't you let everybody know how they can get a hold of Mr. Hack Attack?
Sure. Stuart Hack, Hack Tax and Accounting Services. So when I'm not taking the over and under on Mookie Betts AGI, you could reach me at my office in Wellington, Florida. The number there, 561-214-6171. On the web, www.hacktaxandaccounting.com. Twitter, HackTax1, and you can reach me on LinkedIn and Facebook as well.
And if you want to know anything about the jock tax, go ahead and contact Stuart. We'll drill it in your head, and he'll give you he'll refresh your memory with all that. All right, David Levin, go ahead.
First of all, I think we should put down what the hack tax is and put it on your website, and that way everybody can read it and understand it, and it becomes part of the mantra. What do you think?
You mean the jock tax?
Well, the jock tax. We put it on. Around the website, and everybody has to memorize it. It becomes part of our mantra, and it becomes we have to recite it every week.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't forget the jock tax after we started this thing a few weeks ago. I like talking about the jock tax. Because with it, and then you also wonder about these deferred Bobby Bonilla contracts, too. So we got some pretty interesting stuff. Go ahead, David.
Anyway, guys, this has been great. I love this. All right. I work for fansided.com. I can be found at marlinmaniac.com. I can also be found at blackandteal.com as I cover the Jacksonville Jaguars. I am on Twitter at DM719907. And I'm the co-host for 108 Stitches.
Baseball talk. Don't forget that either.
Okay, fine. Baseball talk. I'm sorry. 108.
Tripping him up.
Hey, Scott, it's late, and I'm starting to fade a little bit.
Oh, you'll be all right. You'll have another minute and a half. You'll be all right. All right. Well, I'll be the closer as I always am. I'll close out the broadcast. How about that? All right. Don't know if I'm as good as Mariano Rivera, but it works. Of course, back in the day when I was growing up, John Hiller was the closer for the Detroit Tigers.
Nice.
There you go. So John Hiller reference. All right. Anyways, you can reach us over at Tribune South. That's the @ Tribune South on Twitter. Facebook, South Florida Tribune, gets it done. Instagram, South Florida Tribune, gets it done. YouTube channel, follow the South Florida Tribune. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com. You'll be able to go ahead and read everything from our media distribution partners as well as our columnists, and you can locate the broadcast there as well. You can email me at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. LinkedIn, Scott Morganroth. And if you want to find these broadcasts, you can find these podcasts and subscribe to them, no charge, at Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts. Those are the main distribution partners for the podcast as well. And once again, as you can see them on the South Florida Trivia website. So on behalf of David Levin and Stuart Hack, my name is Scott Morgan. We're out the Motor City Mad Mouse saying thanks for joining us tonight, and we'll go out there and do it again next Thursday. Meanwhile, have a great weekend and be safe out there, because I'll tell you, this coronavirus, COVID-19, you have to take it seriously. It will bite you. So we'll catch you next time. Great job tonight, guys.